AITA for canceling $48,700 after my wife had me escorted out of her charity gala? I'm Scott, 42, and I've been Brooke's husband for 8 years. I'm the kind of guy who keeps receipts in a folder, uses the same battered travel mug every morning, and usually believes a private conversation can fix more than a public fight ever will. For a long time, I told myself Brooke was just enjoying a new social circle. Then I realized I wasn't being invited into it. I was being edited out of it. Brooke wasn't always like that. That's the part people skip when they want a clean villain. When we got married, she was magnetic in a way I honestly admired. She could walk into a room where she knew 2 people and leave with 6 new friends, 3 dinner invites, and someone calling her babe, like they had known her since college. I was quieter. I didn't need to be the center of anything. I liked watching her shine. In the early years, when someone asked who I was, she would grab my hand and say, "This is Scott, my husband," like it meant something solid. She would lean into my shoulder at barbecues. She would text me pictures of dresses from fitting rooms and ask, "Too much?" And I would tell her, "Probably, but you'll make it work." Somewhere along the way, "You'll make it work" became the whole marriage. The shift started small enough that I felt stupid for noticing. At one dinner with her newer friends, she introduced me as Scott and kept talking before anyone could ask more. I waited for my husband to come after it, but it never did. Another time, she posted a row of photos from a fundraiser. I had been beside her in 2 of them. In the version she posted, I was cropped out by half a shoulder and a cuff link. When I asked about it, she laughed, not cruelly at first, more like I was being fussy. "You hate pictures anyway," she said, scrolling through her phone at the kitchen island. "I don't hate being acknowledged." She looked up then, eyebrows raised. "That's a little dramatic." Maybe it was. So I let it go. Then the wedding ring started disappearing. At first, she said it clashed with an outfit. Then she said it made her hand look too busy with a bracelet Sienna had picked out. Sienna was Brooke's closest friend in that newer crowd, the kind of woman who could turn a compliment into a test. She always looked polished and faintly amused, like everyone else was trying too hard and she alone had mastered the rules. Brooke loved being around her. Brooke became different around her. Not louder, not happier, sharper. Sienna had opinions about everything. Which restaurants looked tired, which photos made people seem desperate, which people belonged in certain rooms, and which ones changed the temperature. The first time I heard her say that, I thought she was joking. She wasn't. One night, Brooke and Sienna were sitting in our living room with takeout containers open on the coffee table. I had come home with a grocery bag in one hand and my keys hooked on my finger. I heard Sienna say, "You deserve spaces where you can breathe. Not every husband has to be attached to every invitation." Brooke saw me and smiled too quickly. "Hey," she said, "we saved you noodles." Sienna gave me a little wave, not unfriendly, just dismissive, like I was the guy who delivered the groceries. After she left, I asked Brooke what that meant. What meant? Brooke said, rinsing wine glasses in the sink. "Not every husband has to be attached to every invitation." She sighed like I had opened a drawer she was tired of closing. "It means I'm allowed to have a life." I never said you weren't. You don't have to say it. Sometimes you act like if you're not included, I'm doing something wrong. That was the first time she made my presence sound like surveillance. I should have paid attention to how easily the sentence came out of her mouth. Instead, I tried to be fair. Brooke had interests I didn't share. She liked charity events, social clubs, luncheons, art auctions, rooftop cocktail things where everyone wore shoes that looked painful and smiled like they were being photographed even when they weren't. I was not built for that. I could hold a conversation, but I wasn't going to pretend I cared about tasting menus or which resort had the better spa renovations. So when she said certain things were her world, I didn't push. I thought giving her room was healthy. I thought marriage meant not needing to sit in each other's pockets. The money part came in wrapped in words like investment and networking. A membership fee here, a sponsor table there, a birthday dinner deposit because it would look strange if I didn't do something. Gifts for her parents that somehow went through my card because hers was acting weird. A resort weekend she called a reset, then a couples thing, then later, when I asked about dates, probably more of a girls' wellness weekend. We had a joint account for household expenses, but a lot of Brooke's social spending landed on the card where I was the primary holder. She was an authorized user. That arrangement had started for convenience years earlier, not because she couldn't handle herself. I paid the balance, she paid other things, and we didn't nickel and dime each other. At least, that was the story I told myself. But there were patterns. When a charge helped the house, Brooke called it ours. When a charge helped her image, she called it mine only when the bill came. She would come home from a dinner and say, "People were asking about the resort. They're so excited for me." For us. I asked once. She barely paused. Right? Us. Then she turned back to her phone. The charity gala was supposed to be different because Brooke actually told me about it directly. She came into the bedroom one evening while I was folding laundry and said, "There's a gala next month. It's important." What kind of important? The kind where people notice if you show up right. I picked up one of her sweaters from the bed. Do I own anything that lets me show up right? She smiled at that, and for a second I saw the old Brooke. Your dark suit is fine. Just no brown shoes. Cruel, but noted. She sat on the edge of the bed and explained that spouses were welcome. She said it was at a hotel ballroom, black tie optional but not really optional, a charity event with donor tables and sponsor signage. A week later, I saw the partial sponsorship charge hit my account. Not the whole thing, but enough that I noticed. Then the event appeared in our shared calendar. Brooke added it herself. Gala, 7 p.m. 2 days before the event, she texted me while I was out picking up dry cleaning. Don't be late Friday. Check-in starts at 6:30, dinner at 7. I replied, I'll be there. Want me to meet you at the entrance? She wrote back, I may go early with Sienna. Just come in when you arrive. That message mattered later more than I wanted it to. On Friday, I got ready without making a production of it. Dark suit. Black shoes, because apparently I had standards now. I used a little more effort than usual on my tie and stood in front of the mirror, trying not to feel like I was auditioning for my own wife. Brooke left before me. She looked incredible. Silver dress, hair pulled back, earrings I recognized because I had paid the insurance rider on them after her mother gave them to her. She moved through the hallway smelling like perfume and hairspray, holding her clutch in one hand and her phone in the other. You look nice, I said. She glanced over me. You do too. Just remember, tonight is a big deal for me. I know. I don't want anything awkward. That should have sounded strange. But in the moment, I thought she meant not making jokes about the people or the food or the whole polished performance of it. I can behave, I said. She gave me a thin smile. Great. Then she kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick, and left. The hotel lobby was all warm lighting and expensive flowers when I arrived. There was a valet stand outside, a line of black cars, women in shiny dresses, men checking their cuffs. The ballroom entrance had 2 tall arrangements beside it, and a sponsor board printed with names in metallic lettering. I saw Brooke's name on the board, and, beneath a different line, the sponsor tier that had been charged to my account. I remember thinking, okay, just get through the awkward first 10 minutes. At the check-in table, a young woman asked for my last name. I gave it. She searched the laptop, frowned politely, searched again. I'm sorry, she said. I'm not finding you. My wife's here. Brooke. That made her fingers pause. 1 second. She leaned toward another staff member. They murmured over the screen. I pulled up the calendar invite and Brooke's text, because I assumed it was an ordinary event mistake. Mistakes happen. Lists get merged. Names get misspelled. No reason to jump to something ugly. A woman in a black dress and headset came over. She looked professional in that calm, tired way event managers do when 6 things are on fire and none of them can show on her face. I'm Rachel, she said. Can I help? I showed her the message from Brooke. I'm Scott, Brooke's husband. She told me to come in when I arrived. Rachel's expression changed by 1 degree. Not enough for most people to notice, but I did. She looked from my phone to the laptop, then toward the ballroom doors. I'm sorry, she said carefully. You're not cleared for entry. I was told spouses were welcome. They are, generally. Generally. Rachel pressed her lips together. Behind her, one of the staff members whispered to the other, not quietly enough. She said not to let him in if he showed up. The words didn't feel real at first. They landed somewhere outside me, like I had heard them in a movie. I looked past Rachel through the open ballroom doors. Inside, Brooke was seated near the front of the room at a round table with Sienna and a man named Julian. I had met Julian twice, maybe 3 times, always in group settings. He was polished and confident and wore attention like it had been tailored for him. He had his hand lightly on the back of Brooke's chair while she leaned toward him laughing. Not a polite laugh. Not a networking laugh. A free one. Brooke looked toward the entrance. Our eyes met. For 1 second, her face went blank. I expected her to stand. I expected confusion, embarrassment, something. Even irritation would have been better, because irritation would mean I existed. Instead, she turned back toward Julian. I pulled out my phone and texted her. I'm at the door. They're saying I'm not on the list. The read receipt appeared almost immediately. No reply. I called once. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. A security employee took one step closer, not aggressive, just doing his job. Sir, we need you to move away from the entrance. You're creating confusion. Confusion. That word came up a lot that night. A woman I had met at Brooke's birthday lunch months earlier walked by with a man in a tux. She saw me. Recognition flickered across her face. Then she looked away so fast it was almost impressive. Like admitting she knew me would cost her a seat. I could have raised my voice. I could have said, that's my wife sitting right there. I could have forced Brooke to deal with me in front of everyone, which maybe she deserved. But I could also see the version of the story she would tell if I gave her that scene. Scott showed up angry. Scott caused a disturbance. Scott embarrassed me in front of donors. Scott can't handle my life. So I swallowed it. I looked at Rachel and said, I understand you're doing your job. She looked genuinely uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I know this is uncomfortable. Yeah, I said. Me too. Then I walked out. The music followed me through the lobby, soft and expensive. I passed the sponsor board again. Past the flowers. Past the valet stand where a young guy in a red vest asked if I needed my car brought around. I didn't get that far, I said. He didn't know what to do with that, so he smiled and looked at the key box. I sat in my car for a while with my tie tied around my neck and the engine off. People moved past me toward the entrance, laughing, adjusting shawls, checking lipstick and phone cameras. Inside, my wife was sitting beside another man at an event she had told me to attend, in a room I had helped pay for, after asking staff not to let me in. For once, I understood the difference between staying calm and letting someone erase me. My hands weren't shaking. That almost bothered me. I felt too still, like something had gone cold in the center of me. I opened my email first. Sponsorship receipt. Payment method ending in the last 4 digits of my card. I opened the shared calendar next. Resort dates, 3 weeks away. Private dining reservation for Brooke's birthday weekend. Confirmation from a floral company for an arrangement package tied to a club dinner. Membership renewal notice for a social group Brooke once said would be good for both of us, even though I had never been invited to a single event. Then I opened the credit card app. Pending charges. Deposits. Installments. A car service hold. A tasting menu balance. A charge from a boutique I knew because Brooke had once told me their alterations were basically charity work at those prices. It wasn't that I had never seen the charges before. I paid the bills. I knew they existed. But I had seen them through the lens of marriage. Partnership. Support. Brooke building connections. Brooke being happy. Now I saw them through the ballroom doors. If I wasn't allowed to exist there, my money didn't need to either. I called my sister Paige. She answered on the 4th ring, voice sleepy but alert. What happened? That's Paige. She doesn't say hello when I call late. She assumes there's a reason. I told her everything. The check-in table. Rachel. The staff whisper. Brooke seeing me. The read receipt. The voicemail. The security guard using that word. When I finished, Paige was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Where are you? In my car outside the hotel. Good. Stay there for a second. Do not go back inside. I wasn't planning to. I know. I'm saying it anyway. Do not give her a scene she can screenshot. I laughed once, but there wasn't much humor in it. Screenshots of me walking into a ballroom? Scott. Her voice softened. I love you. But Brooke has been building a story. I've been telling you that. I know. No, you've been hearing me say it. That's different. I leaned back against the headrest and looked at the hotel entrance. She looked right at me. Paige exhaled. Save the emails. Save the receipts. Then breathe. I'm looking at the charges now. What charges? I started reading them off. Resort deposit. Dinner package. Membership renewal. Car service. Sponsorship. Floral package. Authorized user card balance. By the time I stopped, Paige had gone silent again. Then she asked, Are any of those mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, medical, Anything basic? No. Are they under your name or your card? Most of them. Then decide what you're willing to pay for. That sentence did something the humiliation hadn't done. It made the next step clear. Not revenge in the wild, stupid sense. Not draining accounts. Not locking her out of household money. Not touching anything she needed to live. I wasn't trying to become the villain she had apparently been describing. But I was done paying for the stage where I had been written out of the script. I drove home before doing anything, because Paige was right. I needed a record, not a tantrum. The house was quiet when I got there. Brooke's shoes from earlier were gone from the hallway, but one of her sweater sleeves was hanging off a dining chair. Her coffee mug was still beside the sink with a lipstick print on the rim. Normal things. Married things. That almost made it worse. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and started making a list. Not an emotional list. A practical one. Basic responsibilities stayed. Mortgage. Utilities. Insurance. Groceries. Shared household costs. Anything that would harm the actual home or put her in a bad position for necessities stayed untouched. Performances went. The luxury resort stay Brooke had been calling a wellness weekend was under my card for the deposit and remaining balance. I canceled the reservation through the email link, then called to confirm. The woman on the phone asked if I was sure because the deposit would only be partially refundable. I'm sure, I said. The private birthday dinner package was next. It had a chef's tasting menu, a reserved room, wine pairing, and a minimum that made my jaw tighten now that I was looking at it with clear eyes. I canceled before the final payment deadline. The social membership renewal had my payment method saved. I removed it and sent a short email saying I would not be responsible for future charges. The car service for the private club dinner went next. Then the floral package. Then the small sponsorship attached to Brooke's name but funded from my account. That one required an email. I kept it simple and polite because I wanted everything clean. Please withdraw my payment authorization for the upcoming sponsorship package. I will not be funding this contribution. I paid the current balance on the card Brooke used as an authorized user. Then I froze that user card. I did not close the account. I did not leave vendors unpaid. I did not mess with her credit. I simply stopped future charges from landing on me. By the time I was done, the total of canceled deposits, future reservations, membership fees, sponsor money, car service, and pending luxury charges came to $48,700. I stared at the number for a long time. It wasn't just money. It was proof of how much I had been paying to stay invisible. Then I texted Brooke. I'll pay for our responsibilities. I won't pay to be erased. I put the phone face down and went upstairs. She didn't come home until after midnight. By then, the first calls had already started. At 10:18, the resort sent an automated cancellation confirmation. At 10:31, Brooke called. I didn't answer. At 10:32, she texted. What did you do? At 10:36, another call. At 10:41, a text from her that said, Scott, answer me right now. At 10:49, the private dining coordinator emailed both of us confirming the reservation had been released. At 10:52, Brooke texted, You are humiliating me. That one I answered. I stopped paying for events I'm not allowed to attend. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. You don't understand how these rooms work. I stared at that sentence until the screen dimmed. I understood more than she thought. The next morning, I woke up early out of habit, though I barely slept. Brooke was in the guest room. I knew because the door was closed and her heels were lined up outside it like evidence. I made coffee, poured it into my battered travel mug, then didn't drink any. I sent Rachel a polite email. I wrote that I did not want to create trouble for her staff, but I needed clarification for my records. I asked whether my name had ever been on the guest list and whether my removal had been requested by Brooke. I expected no response, or something vague. Rachel replied just after 9 a.m. Her email was careful, professional, and devastating. Mr. Scott, I can only speak to the guest list versions provided to us. Your name did appear on an earlier version connected to the sponsor confirmation. It was later removed at Mrs. Brooks' request. Her note stated, Please do not admit him if he arrives. It will create confusion with my guest. I apologize for the uncomfortable position this created at check-in. I read it 3 times. It will create confusion with my guest. Not with staff. Not with seating. Not with logistics. With my guest. Julian. I saved the email as a PDF. Then I printed it. The printer made that slow, grinding noise from the hallway, and I stood there watching the page come out like it was a document from someone else's marriage. Paige called me before I could call her. "Please tell me you slept," she said. "Not really." "Did she come home?" "Guest room." "Of course." I emailed the event manager. And I read Rachel's response out loud. Paige swore under her breath. "Save that in 3 places." "Already did." "Good. Now listen to me. This isn't just the gala." "I know." "No, I mean it. You need to look at the stuff you've been avoiding." I knew what she meant. There were things I had noticed and then buried because noticing them required action. Screenshots Paige had told me to take months earlier. Messages Brooke had left open on the laptop. Comments from people that didn't make sense at the time. One afternoon, Brooke had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter while she took a call in the bedroom. I wasn't snooping. I was moving it so I could wipe coffee from the counter. A group chat was open, and one sentence had caught my eye so hard that I photographed it before I had time to talk myself out of it. "I'm basically single, just not legally untangled yet." At the time, Brooke said it was a joke. "You read one line with no context," she told me. "What context makes that better?" She rolled her eyes. "Women vent. You wouldn't get it." Another time, she had been showing me a picture from Sienna's phone and accidentally swiped to a message thread. I saw my name. She snatched the phone back so quickly it confirmed more than the words did. Later, after a long argument where she accused me of being paranoid, Paige told me, "Next time you see something, document it." Not to invade her privacy. To stop letting her rewrite reality. I hated that advice at the time. Now I opened the folder where I had saved screenshots, texts, receipts, and little things that made me feel crazy when I looked at them one by one. One screenshot showed Brooke texting Sienna. "Scott doesn't fit this crowd. It's easier if people think we're not really married in the traditional way." Sienna replied, "Honestly, that's cleaner. You deserve a better image." Another message from Brooke said, "Julian understands my life better. Scott makes everything feel small." Then there was the group chat line again. "I'm basically single, just not legally untangled yet." The twist wasn't that Brooke had lied once. The twist was that she had built a public identity out of the lie, then asked me to finance the props. Separated, but sleeping down the hall from me. Basically single, but letting me pay for the resort she bragged about. Independent, but using my card for dinners, memberships, gifts, deposits, flowers, and driver reservations. Untangled, but only when people were watching. Around noon, the family group text started buzzing. Brooke had made her first move. Her mother wrote, "Scott, Brooke says you canceled important plans out of anger. What is going on?" A cousin added, "This sounds extreme." Then Brooke wrote, "Since everyone is asking, Scott is punishing me financially because he felt uncomfortable at an event. I'm trying to handle this privately, but he's making that impossible." I looked at the message for a long time before answering. I can discuss this when everyone has the full information. I'm not going to argue in a group text. Brooke replied almost instantly. "Convenient." I put the phone down. Paige would have been proud. Brooke came downstairs around 1 in the afternoon wearing sweats, but her makeup from the night before was still faint around her eyes. She looked less like the glamorous woman from the ballroom and more like someone who had slept inside a problem she didn't know how to solve. She stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. "You froze my card." "I froze the authorized user card after paying the current balance." "That is not better." "It is accurate." She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You're enjoying this." "No. You made me look ridiculous." I turned from the counter. "You watched me get turned away from a room I helped pay for." Her jaw tightened. I needed one night without making everything about us. I was standing at check-in. I wasn't standing on the table giving a toast. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under." "What pressure requires telling staff not to admit your husband?" She blinked, and I knew she hadn't expected me to know that part. "Rachel had no right to tell you that. She had every right to correct the lie that it was a system error." Brooke stepped farther into the kitchen. "It wasn't about you. That's the problem. You're twisting this." "No, I'm finally keeping it straight." Her voice rose. "You canceled my birthday dinner. I canceled the private dining package I was paying for. You canceled the resort. The resort where people thought you were going as an independent, basically separated woman." Her face changed. There it was. Not guilt. Fear. "What are you talking about?" she said. I didn't answer right away. I walked to the dining table, picked up the folder, and laid it in front of me. I'm talking about the version of your life where I'm controlling, jealous, and not really your husband unless a bill needs paying. She looked at the folder like it was alive. You went through my messages? You left pieces of your story everywhere, Brooke. I just stopped pretending I couldn't read. That's such a violation. Being erased from my own marriage felt pretty violating too. She pulled out a chair and sat, then immediately stood again, too restless to stay in one position. You're trying to punish me because I'm finally becoming someone. That sentence hurt more than I wanted it to, because it told me what she thought I represented. Ordinary. Small. A before photo. I didn't know being someone required pretending I was no one, I said. She looked away first. For 2 days, Brooke barely spoke to me except through accusation. She said I was controlling. She said I was insecure. She said I had humiliated her in front of people who mattered. She never said, "I'm sorry I left you at the door." She never asked what that felt like. Not once. Meanwhile, the consequences spread in boring, realistic ways. The resort called her during brunch with Sienna and Julian to tell her the deposit was no longer valid. I know because she called me from the restaurant bathroom and left a voicemail whispering furiously. "Scott, they just called me in the middle of brunch. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that is?" A little later, her authorized user card declined when she tried to cover drinks. She had her own card. She used it. The earth did not split open. But to Brooke, the decline was apparently a public execution. The private dining coordinator released the birthday room after the payment deadline passed. The social membership office emailed to ask for updated payment information. Rachel sent Brooke a formal note confirming the sponsorship withdrawal. Brooke's texts changed shape as the day went on. At first they were furious. "You had no right." Then polished. "We need to discuss this like adults." Then pleading, but only around the lifestyle. "Please just reinstate the resort. I'll explain everything after." Then accusing again. "You want me isolated." I answered only once. I paid for responsibilities. I canceled performances. That made her angrier than silence. By Sunday afternoon, she decided to take control of the narrative. That was how Brooke handled discomfort. She didn't sit with it. She staged it. She told me her parents were coming for dinner, along with Sienna, Julian, and 2 mutual acquaintances from that social group. She said it like she was announcing a meeting that had already been scheduled by a higher authority. "No," I said. She looked startled. "No, I'm not being ambushed in my own dining room." "You're not being ambushed. People are concerned. People are concerned because you invited them into our marriage after telling them a fake version of it." She folded her arms. "If you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't mind talking." I almost laughed. "That's your argument?" Her eyes narrowed. "They deserve to hear both sides." "Then they will." She hesitated. She had wanted me defensive. She had wanted me to refuse, so she could say I wouldn't face anyone. Instead, I went upstairs, changed into a clean shirt, and put the folder in the drawer beside my chair. Dinner smelled like roasted chicken and tension. Brooke had cooked just enough to make the evening look civilized. The table was set with cloth napkins we usually only used when her parents came over. Her mother sat stiffly beside her father, lips pressed together. Sienna arrived carrying a bottle of wine and a look that said she had already decided I was beneath the conversation. Julian came in last. He seemed uncomfortable before anyone spoke, which told me he knew something was off, but not enough. The 2 acquaintances, Dana and Mark, hovered near the kitchen island until Brooke instructed everyone to sit. At first, nobody talked about the obvious thing. Brooke asked her mother about a neighbor. Sienna complimented the salad. Julian checked his phone twice. I ate 3 bites of chicken that tasted like cardboard. Then Brooke set down her fork. "I think we should address the situation," she said. Of course she did. Her mother looked at me. "Scott, marriage is supposed to be support." "I agree." "Then why would you cancel things that mattered to your wife?" Before I could answer, Brooke leaned in with the soft, wounded voice she used when performing restraint. "Because he didn't like feeling out of place at one event." I tried to explain that the gala was complicated, and he reacted by pulling money from everything he knew mattered to me. Sienna nodded. "You made this uglier than it had to be, Scott." I looked at her. Did I? "Brooke deserves spaces where she can breathe," Sienna said. "Not every husband needs to be attached to every invitation." Paige's voice echoed in my head. "Don't give her a scene. Give yourself a record." Brooke's father cleared his throat. "I'll be honest. Canceling that much in one night looks retaliatory. It was a boundary, I said. Brooke gave a short laugh. Freezing my card is a boundary now? Freezing my authorized user card after paying the balance, yes. Dana shifted in her chair. Mark stared at his plate. Brooke pressed on. He doesn't like that I'm building something. He doesn't like that I'm finally becoming someone outside this marriage. There it was again. Outside this marriage. Not within herself. Not alongside me. Outside. Julian looked up then, just slightly. Brooke noticed and softened her tone. I've tried to handle his insecurity privately for a long time. That did it. Not because it was the worst thing she had said. It wasn't. But because she had brought people into our home to watch her make me smaller at my own table. I reached into the drawer beside me and took out the folder. The room went quiet in that instant way rooms do when paper appears in a fight. I placed it on the table. Since I'm being accused in front of everyone, I said, I'm answering in front of everyone. Brooke's eyes flashed. Scott. No. It was the first sharp word I had used all night. Not loud. Just firm enough that she stopped. I opened the folder and took out the first page. This is Brooke's text telling me check-in started at 6:30 and dinner was at 7. I slid it toward the center of the table. This is the event confirmation connected to the sponsor payment made from my account. Another page. This is the message I sent from the door after staff told me I wasn't on the list. You can see she read it. Brooke's mother leaned forward despite herself. This is the call log. I called once. She sent it to voicemail. Brooke said, You don't know that. I looked at her. You were looking at me through the ballroom doors when it happened. Nobody moved. Then I took out Rachel's email. And this is from Rachel, the event manager. My name was originally on the guest list. It was removed at Brooke's direct request. The note said, Please do not admit him if he arrives. It will create confusion with my guest. I didn't read more than that. I didn't need to. Brooke's father turned slowly toward her. Brooke, he said, did you ask them not to let your husband in? Brooke's mouth opened, then closed. Sienna reached for her wine and didn't drink it. Brooke said, It wasn't like that. That's exactly what it was, I said. You're making me look like a liar. I didn't make you look like anything. I just stopped covering the mirror. The words came out before I could dress them up. For once, I was glad I didn't. Then I laid out the charges. Not every penny. I wasn't there to bore them into submission. But enough. Resort deposit and remaining balance. Private birthday dinner package. Social membership renewal. Car service. Floral package. Sponsorship contribution. Boutique charges. Gift payments sent through Venmo and Zelle that Brooke had apparently implied she handled herself. These are the things I canceled, I said. None of them were mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, medical costs, or basic household obligations. Those are still paid. What I canceled were non-essential luxury expenses under my card or my account that were being used to maintain a version of Brooke's life where I wasn't allowed to exist. Her mother's face had gone pale. Sienna recovered first. That still sounds controlling. No, I said. Controlling would be telling Brooke she can't attend. I didn't. Controlling would be taking away necessities. I didn't. Brooke can go anywhere she wants with anyone who wants her there. I'm just not paying for rooms I'm not allowed to enter. Julian stared at Brooke. His voice was quieter than everyone else's when he spoke. I was told you two were separated. The whole room changed. Not loudly. No gasps, no dramatic music, no wineglass shattering. Just air leaving people's bodies at the same time. Brooke turned toward him. Julian. He shook his head once. Brooke, that's not what you said. Sienna's eyes dropped to the table. Brooke's father said separated. Brooke reached for control and missed. I said things were complicated. Julian's expression hardened, not angry exactly, but embarrassed. You said you were basically separated. You said Scott was having trouble accepting it. I took out the screenshots then. I had debated whether to use them. Part of me hated bringing private ugliness into a public dinner, even one Brooke had arranged. But she had made the accusation public. She had invited the audience. I slid over the first screenshot. Scott doesn't fit this crowd. It's easier if people think we're not really married in the traditional way. Then the second. Julian understands my life better. Scott makes everything feel small. Then the third. I'm basically single, just not legally untangled yet. Nobody rushed to speak after that. Brooke's mother put a hand over her mouth. Her father sat back as if the chair had given way beneath him. Sienna finally said, too softly, Brooke. It was the first time I had ever heard Sienna sound unsure. Brooke's eyes shone, But the tears felt strategic, like she was searching for the angle that would make them useful. "You don't understand what it's like," she said. "I was trying to be seen as myself." I nodded once. "By making me disappear. You made everything so small." "No," I said. "You wanted bigger rooms. I paid for them. Then you told the people inside those rooms I didn't exist." Her mother whispered, "Why would you say you were separated?" Brooke wiped under one eye. "Because people judge women for being tied down." Mark looked uncomfortable enough to vanish into his chair. Dana's face twisted like she had just realized she had repeated something she shouldn't have. Julian stood slowly. Brooke looked panicked. "Julian, please don't make this into something it wasn't." He adjusted his jacket, avoiding my eyes. "I don't want to be in the middle of whatever this is." "You're not in the middle," Brooke said too quickly. He looked at her. "I was placed there." Then he left. No dramatic speech. No confession. No shouting match. Just the front door opening and closing, which somehow did more damage than a scene would have. Sienna stood not long after. She didn't defend Brooke this time. She didn't apologize to me either. She just murmured something about needing to go and took the wine bottle with her, which felt perfectly on brand. Brooke's parents stayed for another 20 minutes, mostly because they didn't know how to leave without admitting the dinner had collapsed. Her father asked a few practical questions. Her mother cried quietly. Brooke kept saying, "It's not that simple." But every time she tried to explain, she made it worse. At one point, her father said, "You let us think he was punishing you for no reason." Brooke snapped, "He is punishing me." I answered before anyone else could. "I'm protecting myself financially. There's a difference." "You canceled everything in one night," her mother said, not accusing exactly, but not fully on my side either. "I did," I said, "and I should have drawn boundaries earlier. I own that. I let resentment build while pretending patience was the same thing as peace. But I'm not going to accept that quietly funding disrespect is the mature option." That was the closest I came to apologizing for the cancellations. I didn't regret them. After everyone left, the house looked like a party had happened in a room where nobody enjoyed themselves. Half-filled glasses on the table, napkins twisted into knots, a serving spoon on the floor where someone had dropped it and forgotten to pick it up. Brooke stood by the sink, facing away from me. "You destroyed me tonight," she said. I was too tired to soften the truth. "You invited them here to destroy me first." She spun around. "I invited them because you wouldn't listen. I listened for years. That was the problem." Her face crumpled for half a second. Then the defensive wall came back. "You liked being the quiet, supportive husband until I started wanting more. I liked supporting my wife. I didn't like financing a single-woman costume. That's cruel. What you did at the gala was cruel." She looked down, and for a moment I thought she might finally say it. Not a perfect apology. I wasn't expecting a movie scene. Just something real. Instead, she said, "You don't know how hard it is to build an image." I actually laughed then. One short breath. "No, Brooke. I know exactly how expensive it is." I slept in the guest room that night because I didn't want to share a bed with someone who still thought the worst part of the story was her lost image. The fallout didn't happen all at once. Real consequences usually don't. They arrive in awkward silences and unanswered messages. Julian left the group chat 2 days later. Brooke pretended not to care, but I saw her checking her phone every few minutes that night while we ate dinner in opposite quiet corners of the kitchen. Sienna stopped coming over. She still texted Brooke, I assume, but not with the same confidence. Even image consultants get nervous when the image starts costing them. The resort trip disappeared unless Brooke paid the new deposit herself. She didn't. The birthday dinner became a smaller reservation at a normal restaurant with her parents and 2 friends who looked like they were trying not to mention anything. The social membership went on hold pending updated payment. The private club dinner happened without the flowers, without the car service, and without my card. Brooke still went. That part matters. I didn't stop her from having a life. I stopped underwriting the version of it where I had to stand outside. Her phone got quieter in the worst possible way for someone like Brooke. Fewer invitations. Fewer breathless comments. Fewer people asking where she got her dress. Some of them were probably judging her. Some were probably avoiding drama. Some likely just didn't want to be associated with a lie that had become inconvenient. My family knew enough through Paige, but I didn't broadcast the details. I wasn't looking for applause. Paige came over one evening with soup neither of us wanted and sat across from me at the kitchen table. "You okay?" she asked. No. Good. Honest answer. I rubbed both hands over my face. Part of me still feels like I did something ugly. You did something hard. There's a difference. I canceled almost $50,000 in one night. On flowers, resorts, memberships, and fancy dinners. Still, Paige leaned back. Scott, kindness without boundaries turns into self-erasure. You didn't wake up one day and decide to punish a good wife. You reacted after she had security turn away her husband from an event he helped pay for. She says I made her life smaller. Paige gave me the look she used when I was being too generous with someone else's nonsense. People who liked her image don't know what to do with her truth. That sentence stayed with me. A few days later, Brooke asked to talk. Not in the kitchen, where most of our bad conversations happened. In the living room. She sat on the sofa with her legs tucked under her, looking smaller than usual in an old sweatshirt. I sat in the armchair because I needed space between us that wasn't just emotional. She said, "So what now?" I had been waiting for that question. Not because I had a grand plan. Because I finally had lines. Non-essential finances stay separated, I said. You pay for your memberships, trips, private dinners, clothes for events, gifts you want credit for, and anything else tied to your social life. I'll keep paying my share of household responsibilities and anything we agree on together. She stared at the coffee table. Second, you correct the separation story with the people you misled. Her head snapped up. That's humiliating. So was standing at a check-in table while my wife pretended not to know me. She swallowed. Third, no joint money for social spending unless we both agree. Fourth, if you want to save this marriage, we go to counseling and start with honesty, not image repair. And if I don't, she asked, then I speak with an attorney about protecting myself legally and financially. Her eyes filled again, but this time the tears didn't come on command. They sat there, heavy and angry. You're making my life smaller, she said. I shook my head. You made our marriage invisible first. She looked away. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The house made its ordinary noises around us. The refrigerator humming, a car passing outside, one of the pipes ticking behind the wall. I used to think silence meant we were avoiding a fight. Now I knew silence could also be two people realizing the old rules were gone. A week after the gala, Brooke sent a message to the group chat. She didn't show it to me first. I heard my phone buzz while I was loading the dishwasher. Her message said, I need to clarify something. Scott and I were not separated, and it was wrong of me to let people believe that. I handled the gala badly and created confusion that hurt him. I'm sorry for involving others in something I should have addressed honestly. It wasn't perfect. Created confusion was doing a lot of work. Handled the gala badly sounded like she had forgotten place cards, not asked staff to bar her husband from the room. And I noticed she said hurt him, not disrespected him. But it was the first public truth she had told about us in months. A few people responded with short, awkward messages. Thank you for clarifying. Hope you two work things out. That must have been hard to say. Julian didn't respond. Sienna sent a heart emoji and nothing else. Brooke watched her phone for a while after sending it. I watched her watch it. There was no rush of comfort. No instant forgiveness from the crowd. Just a screen that stayed mostly still. That was its own consequence. Later that night, she found me in the dining room sorting papers into the folder. Receipts. Emails. Statements. Not because I wanted to live like an accountant inside my marriage, but because I had learned what happens when memory is the only evidence against someone else's story. Are you going to keep doing that? She asked. For now. You don't trust me at all. No, I said. I don't. She flinched like the honesty was harsher than an insult. I softened my voice, but not the truth. Trust is not coming back because you missed the resort. It comes back if you stop needing people to believe I'm smaller than I am. She stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself. I don't know how to fix this. That's probably the first honest thing you've said. It wasn't tender. It wasn't cruel either. It was just where we were. Counseling was scheduled. Separate cards were ordered. The membership office got Brooke's payment information, not mine. The next time she had an event, she didn't ask me to come. She also didn't ask me to pay. That felt less like healing and more like the absence of a new injury, but I accepted it for what it was. I don't know if our marriage survives this. That isn't a cliffhanger. It's the truth. Some damage doesn't announce its final shape right away. Sometimes all you know is that one version of your life ended at a check-in table under warm hotel lights while your wife looked at you and turned away. But I know what will not happen again. I will not pay for a room where I'm treated like a mistake. I will not smile through being introduced as just Scott when the word husband is being hidden like a stain. I will not let basic decency be reframed as insecurity. And I will not let someone call me controlling for removing my wallet from a lie. I didn't cancel my marriage that night. I canceled the illusion that I had to pay for my own disrespect. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.